Hi everyone, Miss Liz here. Thank you so much for joining me today for today's video of Super Scientists. Today we're doing a really fun experiment called Disappearing Pumpkins. And as usual, if you registered for this program, you should have received a science kit that looks like this. Inside your bags, you will find everything you need for today's project. If you did not register for this program, that is more than okay. You can, of course, still follow along at home using any materials that you might have lying around at the house. So, before we get started, let's quickly go over what we will need for today's experiment. So, in your science kit, you should have received 5 plastic cups, a cup of vinegar. You should have received 5 sugar packets, a baggie of 6 candy pumpkins, as well as a baggie of baking soda and a baggie of salt. And in addition to these materials, you'll be needing a few things from home as well. From home, you'll be needing either a ruler or a tape measure. I'm going to be using a ruler today, but a tape measure works just as well. You also will be needing a spoon, just a plastic spoon is fine, as well as a permanent marker and some water. And as kind of a heads up, this video is going to be broken up into 2 different parts because this is an overnight experiment. So right now we are going to conduct our experiment. We're going to talk a little bit about how to make a hypothesis, and then we're going to check in with one another tomorrow morning to see the results of our experiment. So, the first step in our project is writing all of our ingredients on our plastic cups. Because for today's experiment, we are going to be soaking our pumpkin candies in different mixtures and then observing the results. So what you're going to do is you're going to leave 1 pumpkin in each cup. So you'll want to label your cups, that way you'll know what mixture your pumpkin is in. So I already have all of my cups labeled here, but you're going to want to label 1 cup with water, 1 cup with sugar, 1 cup with vinegar, 1 cup with baking soda, and 1 cup with salt. So I will give you a few minutes to do that. Make sure you use a Sharpie, that way the names of our ingredients will stay on the cup, and then we can get started. All right, so once you have all of the names written on those cups, you're going to fill each cup, except for the one with vinegar, with half a cup of water. So like I said, you can set aside your vinegar cup, leave that on your work surface because we don't need it right now. Then you're going to take the other 4 cups, so your water cup, your salt cup, your baking soda cup, and your sugar cup. You're going to fill all 4 of those cups with half a cup of water. So I'm going to go do that really quickly at the sink behind me, and I will see you guys in just a moment. Hello again, I am back and I have all 4 of my cups, my salt cup, my water cup, my baking soda cup, and my sugar cup, all filled with water. I did forget to mention earlier that you will also be needing a half cup measurer to measure out your water. Hopefully you have one of those at home you can use. If not, you can kind of eyeball it and just make sure you have about an inch or so high of water in those cups. So I'm going to point my camera down so we can finish completing our experiment. All right, so as you can see here, I have all 4 of my cups filled with water and ready to go. So the next part of this experiment is adding in the dry ingredients and stirring them. So make sure you have a spoon handy. So let's start with salt first. So go ahead, grab your baggie of salt, dump it in, and then we will stir and continue. Okay, so next is water, so we don't need to add anything to this. We are just going to leave a pumpkin in plain water. After that, we have baking soda. Go ahead, take your baggie of baking soda, dump it in your baking soda cup, and then stir that one as well. All right, last we have our sugar cup. you are going to dump all 5 packets of sugar into that sugar cup. So you can actually just dump all 5 in and then stir. You don't have to stir in between. Okay, so let's stir this, and then we will move on to our vinegar cup. All right, last but not least, we have our vinegar cup here. You can take your sealed cup of vinegar and just pour that right in. We also don't need to add any dry ingredients to this. We're just going to place the pumpkin in the cup of vinegar. Okay, so now we're going to set these aside. We're not ready to put the pumpkins in just yet because we are going to talk a little bit about how to make a hypothesis. So in your science kits, you also should have received a pumpkin science sheet here. So here we're going to talk a little bit, like I said, about how to make a hypothesis, and then we're also going to do some pre-observations. So I actually already have my hypotheses filled out right here. I'm not going to share them with you guys just yet because I want you to make your own hypotheses. So let's start with the top portion here, which is our pre-observation section. So this section here says to tape a plain pumpkin in. You don't really have to tape it. I found that taping it to the piece of paper was a little tricky because the pumpkin is very round. So if you just want to leave a plain pumpkin in this box here, that's totally fine. So let's do that. Let's put one of our pumpkins, and we're actually going to leave, you have 6 pumpkins in this bag, but we only have 5 cups. So you're actually going to leave one pumpkin out. That way you can compare what the original pumpkin looks like to the pumpkins that have soaked in their solutions overnight. So I'm going to tilt my camera down again. I'm going to leave my pumpkin here. Then we're going to take either our ruler or our tape measure, and we're going to measure both the width of our pumpkin and the height of our pumpkin. So let's see here. First, we're going to measure the height, which is how tall the pumpkin is. And I guess we'll do it in centimeters since the pumpkin is really not that big. So you can kind of just stick your ruler or your tape measure next to your pumpkin, and then here you can see it is just about a little over 1.5 centimeters tall. I actually forgot to grab a pencil, so I'm not going to write my answer down, but you guys can go ahead and grab something to write with. Under the height, we have about 1.5. And then to measure the width of our pumpkin, we'll stick the pumpkin in front of our ruler here. Make sure you're using centimeters. And let's see, it is about 2 centimeters wide. So you can write that down under the width section as well. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how to make a hypothesis. If you are unfamiliar with the word hypothesis, a hypothesis is basically an educated guess. So let's think about what we know about the solutions we're using. So we're using vinegar, we're using baking soda, plain water, salt, and sugar. So based off our knowledge on what we know about those ingredients, we can kind of make a guess about what will happen when we leave our pumpkin in those ingredients overnight. So for example, I know that salt sometimes makes things bloat. Like if you absorb something in salt, it's going to make it swell. So a hypothesis that I made was that if we leave a pumpkin in our cup of salt water overnight, that the pumpkin might grow or it might swell because the salt is going to make the candy bloat. So that is one example of a hypothesis I made. Your hypothesis can obviously be different. It can be whatever you think would happen based off your knowledge of these ingredients and just your own curiosity. So go ahead, write down a few different hypotheses based on what you think will happen when each pumpkin is left in overnight in those 5 different mixtures. And like I said, you can jot those hypotheses down here on the first set of boxes. They do say hypothesis. And then tomorrow, when we check back in with one another, we're going to obviously first check in on our pumpkins, and then we're going to write down what happens after they have been left out overnight, so our post observations, and then we can compare. We can talk about were our hypotheses correct or were they totally off? And that's the fun part about science, is that sometimes your hypothesis might be way off than what actually happened, but that's how you learn from things. All right, so I'm going to point my camera down again, and we are going to get all of these pumpkin candies dropped in to these cups here. So like I said, you'll want to make sure that you leave one pumpkin out, because we'll want to make sure that we compare to what it looks like the other pumpkins that have been soaked overnight. So go ahead, just drop one pumpkin in each cup. Make sure you set these cups aside somewhere where they will be safe and not get knocked over. Maybe put them on a countertop in your kitchen, somewhere where younger siblings or pets won't knock them over. And we are going to see each other again tomorrow morning. Thank you for watching the first part of this video. Stay tuned, and we will check back in on our experiment in roughly 24 hours. See you then. Hey y'all, I'm back. Miss Liz Y here. It is morning time, and my pumpkins have been left in their solutions overnight, and let me tell you, they look strange. I am also genuinely shocked at the results. They are not anything like I expected, so hopefully you also woke up to find some interesting results from your science experiment. It is raining right now, so I apologize if you can hear the rain outside, but let's get started. So, like I said, you should have set aside a pumpkin from yesterday's experiment. You can probably remember this is what our original pumpkin looks like, and if your results look anything like mine, they don't look like that now. Also, make sure you have your pumpkin science sheet handy. You should have all of your hypotheses recorded in this top box here, and as we are looking at our results, you can kind of jot down some notes from your post observation, and then we can compare what our original pumpkin looks like to the pumpkins now after they have been left overnight. So, if you guys remember, one of the hypotheses I made was I thought the pumpkin left overnight in the salt water would bloat or swell, and that did not happen at all. In fact, the salt water pretty much had the opposite effect on our pumpkin. As you can see here, there's pretty much no pumpkin left in this salt water. It's pretty much completely dissolved. It looks like this little blob here, you know, there's a little bit of the pumpkin left, like a little bit of the green stem, but as you can see here, it's pretty much completely gone. And as you can see from the rest of our results, all of the solutions pretty much had the same or a very similar effect on the candies, which I am very surprised about. It looks like the solution that left the most pumpkin or didn't dissolve the pumpkin as much was the vinegar, which I'm pretty shocked by. I mean, this one is still pretty much dissolved, but it's not as dissolved as the other 4, which I find strange. I also think it's a little bit weird that this is a much brighter orange color than any of the other 4 cups. A lot of the solutions kind of absorbed the color from the pumpkin candy, so I'm not really sure why this one is much brighter than the others, but it's pretty interesting. I also thought it was a little strange that the plain water dissolved the pumpkin as well as the other solutions did. I was kind of expecting that plain water wouldn't really have much of an effect at all on the pumpkin because it's just water, but I guess because it was left for so long, it also dissolved the pumpkin. So hopefully you guys found this experiment interesting. Hopefully you learned something new. Make sure to jot down some post-observation notes so you can work to compare your results. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon. Bye-bye.